It's funny how life can throw unexpected curveballs at you, isn't it? One minute, everything feels controlled, predictable. And the next, something happens that makes you question everything. That's exactly what happens in today's story. Meet a woman who thought she had everything figured out. At 38 years old, she's come to terms with the end of a long-term relationship. Her life, though quieter, seemed stable. But everything changes when her niece, Emily, comes to visit for the weekend, bringing along her best friend, Lily. From the moment she lays eyes on Lily, something inside her stirs, a feeling so unfamiliar, it's impossible to ignore. Is it just a fleeting attraction, or is it something deeper? Something that challenges everything she thought she knew about herself. But here's the twist. The guilt that comes with these emotions is overwhelming. After all, Lily is so much younger, and the lines between family and something more are dangerously blurry. This isn't just about attraction, it's about a desire she can't seem to shake, no matter how much she tries to deny it. In today's video, you'll follow this journey of self-discovery, where boundaries blur, emotions clash, and one woman finds herself questioning the very core of her identity. This story is filled with tension, desire, and complex emotions that many of us can relate to, whether we've felt them ourselves or simply seen them in others. But be warned, this isn't your typical love story. This is about navigating emotions you never expected to feel, dealing with feelings that are far from simple, and realizing just how much your heart can complicate your life. Stick around till the end, because what happens next will keep you on the edge of your seat. Welcome to the channel, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss any of the emotional twists and turns we have in store. The weekend passed in a blur of conversations and shared moments. It was easy to get caught up in the warmth of the house, the laughter that echoed through the rooms, and the sense of normalcy Emily's visit brought. But no matter how much the days unfolded with their usual rhythm, I couldn't stop thinking about Lily. She had a certain charm about her, one that was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just her beauty, it was the way she carried herself, the way she spoke, the way she looked at me when we spoke. There was a softness to her gaze, a gentle curiosity in her eyes that made me feel like she could see right through me. And with every passing moment, the connection between us seemed to deepen, quietly, subtly, like a current flowing just beneath the surface, unnoticed by anyone but us. We spent hours together, me, trying to hold on to my composure, and Lily, with her youthful energy and laughter. She had a way of making everything feel lighter, like she was inviting me into her world, a world so far removed from the quiet, structured life I had grown accustomed to. It wasn't just the fun, carefree moments that pulled me in, it was her vulnerability, the way she shared small pieces of herself without hesitation. I found myself drawn to her, not just physically, but emotionally. And with each conversation, each laugh we shared, it became harder to ignore the growing sense of attraction. One evening, long after Emily had gone to bed, Lily and I found ourselves alone in the living room, sipping tea and talking about life. It was one of those rare, quiet moments when the noise of the world fades away, leaving only the two of you in a space of intimacy. We talked about everything and nothing, her studies, my life post-breakup, our hopes, our regrets. She told me about her dreams and her fears with an openness that left me speechless. I couldn't help but feel a warmth spread through me, a warmth that had nothing to do with the tea we were sipping. Somewhere in the middle of that conversation, the space between us closed. I don't know if it was the way she looked at me, or the way I felt like I could trust her with my own vulnerabilities, but the air between us thickened. There was a quiet understanding, an unspoken pull that neither of us acknowledged out loud, but both of us felt. When she reached for the teacup on the table, her hand brushed mine ever so slightly. It wasn't intentional, I knew that. But in that moment, something shifted. The electricity was subtle, but undeniable. For a moment, we both froze, neither of us knowing what to say or do. I could feel my pulse quicken, my thoughts becoming jumbled, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I pulled my hand back quickly, my heart racing, but Lily didn't seem to notice. She just smiled softly and continued speaking, unaware of the storm of emotions that were brewing inside me. But I couldn't shake the feeling, the sudden awareness of her presence, of how much I wanted her to stay close, to be near me, in ways that went beyond simple friendship. The rest of the evening passed in a haze. I couldn't focus on anything. The attraction that had been quietly growing in the back of my mind now felt louder, more real. The way my body responded to her proximity, the way my heart raced every time she laughed or brushed against me, it was impossible to ignore. As I lay in bed later that night, my thoughts swirled. I kept replaying our conversation, our quiet moments, the way the air had felt thick with something unspoken. I told myself it was just a fleeting attraction, a moment of weakness. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I had never felt this way before, not about someone like her. It wasn't just her youth, her beauty, or her charm. It was something deeper, something that unsettled me. I couldn't stop thinking about her. And that scared me, because if I was honest with myself, I knew this wasn't something that could easily be forgotten. The next day was filled with awkward silence. Emily had gone out with a friend, leaving Lily and me alone in the house. For a moment, I wondered if I should just keep my distance, maintain the boundaries I had always known. But every time I looked at her, every time our eyes met, that pull between us became stronger, more impossible to ignore. We ended up in the kitchen, me preparing lunch while she leaned against the counter, absent-mindedly scrolling through her phone. The quiet felt heavier this time, like something unspoken was hanging between us, waiting for one of us to acknowledge it. But neither of us did. I tried to focus on the food, trying to keep my mind on something else. But it wasn't working. The way her presence filled the room, how the soft hum of her voice made me forget everything else, it all started to consume me again. The feeling from the night before, the heat that spread through my body with the smallest touch, was still there, lingering, making everything feel just a little too close, a little too intense. "Do you like cooking?" she asked, breaking the silence. Her voice was gentle, but there was something in it, an edge to her tone, something that made me look up. She was watching me intently, as if waiting for an answer, but also as if she was searching for something more, something deeper. I hesitated for a moment, trying to focus on the question rather than the way her gaze felt like it was unraveling me. "I used to," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Not so much these days." She nodded, her lips curling into a soft, almost knowing smile. "Yeah, I get that. Things change, right?" I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just nodded, turning my attention back to the food, but the tension in the air was impossible to ignore now. It was thick, suffocating. Every movement I made, every step I took, felt like it was being watched, scrutinized. Lily took a step closer, as if unaware of the space she was invading. She asked me about my favorite places to visit, her voice light, but the air between us felt heavy, charged. I could smell the faint hint of her perfume, feel the warmth of her body near mine. It made my pulse race, my heart beat faster. At one point, I accidentally brushed against her as I moved to grab a utensil. It was a fleeting moment, a simple touch, but it felt like the entire world shifted in that instant. I could feel the heat from her body seeping into mine, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. My hand lingered just a fraction of a second longer than it should have before I quickly pulled away, my face flushing with embarrassment. She didn't seem to notice the way I was falling apart inside. She just smiled, continuing the conversation as if nothing had happened. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Every time she was near me, my thoughts raced, and my body responded in ways I couldn't control. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft, almost concerned. "You seem distant." I froze, unsure of how to answer. The last thing I wanted to do was admit the truth. That I was feeling things I shouldn't, things that made me uncomfortable, things that scared me. Instead, I just gave a small, forced smile. "Yeah, I'm fine," I said quickly, hoping she would buy it. She didn't seem convinced, but she didn't press further. The rest of the time passed in a quiet, uneasy sort of rhythm. It wasn't until much later, when the day was winding down, that the weight of it all hit me. The attraction I felt for her wasn't just a passing thing. It was something real, something that I couldn't just push away. I tried to convince myself that it was just the loneliness, the void left by my breakup, making me see things in a different light. But deep down, I knew the truth. It wasn't just about being lonely. It was about something deeper, something I had never anticipated. As the evening came, and we settled into our respective corners of the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that this, whatever this was, wasn't going to go away. That no matter how much I tried to deny it, the connection between us was undeniable. And I didn't know how much longer I could pretend it wasn't there. The following days were filled with a tension I couldn't escape. I found myself avoiding Lily more and more, retreating into the comfort of my own space. The more I tried to put distance between us, the more intense my feelings became. It was as if every little interaction, every moment of silence between us, only made the pull stronger. I spent most of the day working, trying to focus on the tasks that normally kept me grounded, but every time I looked up, I found myself searching for her, wondering what she was doing, how she was feeling. And when she was nearby, I couldn't concentrate. It was as though my entire world revolved around the space she occupied, and I didn't know how to escape it. It wasn't until late one afternoon, when Emily was out again, that Lily found me. She didn't knock on the door, she simply entered, her presence almost a quiet command. "You've been avoiding me," she said, her voice calm but with an undercurrent of something more. Something I couldn't quite place. I felt a surge of guilt wash over me. I hadn't meant to avoid her, not exactly. But how could I not? Every time I was near her, it felt like I was walking a line between control and surrender, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep my balance. "I'm not avoiding you," I replied, though my voice sounded more defensive than I intended. "I've just been busy." She stepped further into the room, her gaze never leaving me. Busy with work, or busy with me? The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. I didn't know how to respond. What could I say? That I was avoiding her because every time she was near, I felt like I was drowning in emotions I couldn't control. That the attraction I felt was too much, too complicated, and too wrong. But I couldn't bring myself to say any of that. Instead, I stood there, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. Lily didn't seem to be waiting for an answer. She took a step closer, her eyes soft but intense, like she was studying me, searching for something. "You don't have to pretend," she said quietly, almost as if she were reassuring herself. "I know what this is." The words struck me, sending a chill down my spine. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She paused, her lips curling into a small, almost sad smile. "I know what I feel. And I think you do, too. You're just scared to admit it." I felt my heart pound in my chest. Her words were too close to the truth, too close to the raw emotions I had been desperately trying to suppress. I opened my mouth to say something, but no words came. How could I possibly admit to what I was feeling? How could I tell her that she was right, that this attraction, this longing, was consuming me? "I'm not," I started, but the words faltered. "You don't have to explain," she interrupted gently. "I know you're not ready. But that doesn't change what's between us." There it was again, those words that made everything inside me quake. The unspoken truth that had been building between us ever since we met. It wasn't just an attraction. It was something deeper, something more dangerous. I couldn't breathe, the air in the room felt thick, suffocating, and I could feel my emotions spiraling out of control. I wanted to pull away, to escape this feeling, but my body refused to obey. All I could do was stand there, frozen, as Lily took another step forward. "I won't force you to do anything you're not ready for," she said softly. "But I can't pretend either. Not anymore." Her words lingered in the air, and for a long moment, we both stood in silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on us. I knew what she was saying, knew that we were on the edge of something that could never go back to normal. That no matter what happened, nothing would be the same after this. I felt a wave of panic rise in me. This was all too much, too fast. I wasn't ready to confront these feelings, not with her, not with anyone. But at the same time, a part of me, an undeniable part, didn't want to walk away. Didn't want to let go of the connection that had grown so strong, so undeniably real, between us. For a moment, I thought about running, about putting up the walls I had built around myself and retreating into my safe, structured life. But then I realized, those walls had already started to crumble. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop hiding from what I was feeling. It was time to stop pretending that I didn't want this, whatever this was. "I don't know what to do with this," I finally admitted, my voice barely audible. Lily stepped closer, her hand reaching out to gently touch my arm. "Neither do I, but I think we'll figure it out. Together." The room seemed to close in around us, and in that moment, everything felt impossibly fragile. It was like standing at the edge of something I couldn't fully understand, and yet, I felt myself leaning toward it, pulled by forces I couldn't resist. We were on the edge of something big. Something dangerous. Something that could change everything. And I had no idea what would happen next. The days that followed were a blur of uncertainty. Everything felt different, even though nothing had visibly changed. I still woke up each morning, went through my routine, and tried to keep my emotions in check. But inside, something was shifting, something I couldn't stop. It was as if the pull I felt toward Lily was slowly becoming a part of me, impossible to ignore. I tried to keep my distance, to maintain some semblance of control, but every time I saw her, every time our paths crossed, the temptation to let go grew stronger. It was hard to pretend that everything was normal when every glance between us felt like an electric charge. Each touch, however accidental, sent sparks through my body. One evening, after dinner, Emily went out again with her friends, leaving me and Lily alone in the house. The house, which had once felt like a sanctuary, now felt too small, too confined. Every space seemed to be filled with the weight of what was unsaid, with the tension that simmered between us. We ended up in the living room, the light from the fireplace casting a warm glow across the room. Lily sat on the couch, her legs tucked under her, her eyes fixed on the fire as if she were lost in thought. I sat across from her, our gazes occasionally meeting, but neither of us saying anything. The silence felt heavier than it had before. I could hear the crackling of the fire, but it seemed distant compared to the noise in my head. My mind raced with questions, doubts, and fears. What did I want from this? What was I supposed to do now? Could I just walk away from it all, pretend this was a passing fancy, or was this something I had to confront? Lily finally broke the silence, her voice soft, almost hesitant. Do you ever wonder what would happen if we just let this happen? I froze, my heart skipping a beat. The question hung in the air between us, heavy and loaded. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. I had wondered, of course, I had. But hearing her say it out loud made it feel so much more real, so much more terrifying. I don't know, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I don't know if I can. Lily looked at me then, her eyes soft but full of understanding. I know it's scary, she said quietly. But sometimes, we just have to take the leap. If we keep holding back, we'll never know what could be. Her words were like a promise, but also a warning. A reminder that we couldn't stay where we were forever, that something had to give. But the fear inside me, the fear of what would happen if we crossed that line, if we gave in to the feelings that had been building between us, was overwhelming. I'm not sure I'm ready for this, I admitted, my voice trembling with the weight of it. I don't know if I can handle what comes next. Lily's gaze softened, and she shifted closer, the space between us shrinking until she was sitting right next to me. You don't have to handle it alone, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm here, we can figure this out, together. Her words were soothing, comforting even, but they didn't erase the fear, the guilt, the confusion swirling inside me. How could I justify this? How could I let myself feel this way about someone so much younger, someone who was supposed to be off limits? And yet, every time she touched me, every time our eyes met, I couldn't help but feel like there was something undeniable between us. Lily reached out then, her fingers brushing against mine, the simple touch sending a shock through me. I felt my breath catch in my throat as the electricity between us sparked once more. This was it. This was the moment I had been avoiding, the moment when I had to either pull away or give in. She looked at me, her expression searching, waiting for a response. I could see the hope in her eyes, the trust she was placing in me. And for a moment, I was paralyzed by the weight of the decision. But then, slowly, my hand moved, almost on its own, closing the distance between us. My fingers brushed against hers, and I felt the world tilt just slightly off balance. Lily's hand tightened around mine, her eyes closing for a brief moment as if savoring the moment. And I, for the first time in days, allowed myself to breathe. I didn't know what this was, or where it would lead, but in that moment, it didn't matter. All that mattered was that she was here, and I wasn't alone in this feeling anymore. But even as I allowed myself to sink into the comfort of her touch, a part of me remained cautious. This wasn't just about desire, it was about something far deeper, something that threatened to unravel everything I had ever known. The guilt began to creep back in, whispering in the back of my mind. This wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. But even as those thoughts surfaced, I realized I didn't want to fight this anymore. I didn't want to fight her, or the emotions that had become so tangled up inside me. As Lily leaned in, her lips brushing against my cheek in a tender kiss, I closed my eyes, letting the moment wash over me. This was just the beginning, I knew that. But for now, I let myself give in to the feeling, to the pull that had been building between us for so long. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. The days that followed were a mix of emotions I couldn't fully understand. It was as if the world outside of us had ceased to exist, leaving only the space we occupied together. The tension, the uncertainty, and the connection we shared had created a bubble, one that felt safe but also suffocating. Every interaction between Lily and me was now loaded with meaning. Every look, every touch, seemed to carry a weight I couldn't escape. I found myself questioning everything, my heart torn between desire and guilt. This wasn't supposed to happen. This kind of relationship wasn't something I had ever imagined, let alone allowed myself to pursue. But the more I tried to deny it, the stronger the pull became. It was as if something deep inside me knew that there was no going back. Lily and I were still tiptoeing around the boundaries of what was now a complicated, confusing, and overwhelming connection. Our moments together had become increasingly intimate, yet we both held back, unsure of how far we could go without crossing a line we couldn't return from. Every time she looked at me with that soft, knowing gaze, every time she smiled at me with that quiet confidence, it felt like I was falling deeper into something I couldn't control. It was the quiet moments that were the hardest, the ones when we sat together in silence, our hands almost touching, but not quite. I could feel her presence, feel the weight of her emotions, and yet there was an unspoken understanding between us that neither of us was ready to break. Not yet. One night, as the rain tapped against the windows, we found ourselves sitting on the couch, wrapped in the warmth of the room. Emily had gone to bed early, leaving us alone. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to relax, to be in the moment with her. Lily shifted closer, her body just inches away from mine. I could feel the heat of her, the softness of her presence, and it took everything in me not to reach out and close the gap. But the fear, the overwhelming fear of what would happen if we crossed that line, held me back. She must have sensed my hesitation because she turned to face me, her eyes searching mine. "I'm not going anywhere," she said softly, her voice a soothing balm to the chaos in my mind. "You don't have to be scared." The words hit me harder than I expected, opening up something inside me that I had been trying to suppress for so long. How could I not be scared? This wasn't just about us anymore, it was about everything else that came with it. The risk, the consequences, the confusion of it all. And yet, deep down, a part of me knew that I couldn't keep running from this, no matter how much I tried. "I'm not scared of you," I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. "I'm scared of what this means." Her gaze softened, and she reached for my hand, gently cupping it in hers. "It's okay to be scared," she said, her thumb brushing against my skin in a tender gesture. "But we don't have to figure it all out right now. We can just be." I looked at her, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the fire, and for the first time in days, I allowed myself to feel something other than fear. I didn't know what this was, or where it would go, but I knew that right now, in this moment, I wasn't alone. And that was enough. The night stretched on, and for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to be fully present with Lily. There were no questions, no answers, just the quiet understanding that we were both in this together, whatever this was. But as the hours passed and the fire began to die down, the reality of our situation settled back in. This wasn't something we could ignore forever. The consequences of our actions were real, and they were waiting for us on the other side. We couldn't stay in this bubble forever. Eventually, we stood up, the space between us growing as we moved back into the reality of the world outside of our bubble. The feeling of her hand in mine, though brief, lingered. I knew that we were on the edge of something that could change everything. "I don't know what's going to happen next," I said, my voice shaky with the weight of it all. "But I can't pretend I don't feel this anymore." Lily looked at me, her eyes filled with something that could have been hope, or fear, or both. "Neither can I," she said softly. "But maybe we don't have to figure everything out right now. Maybe we just take it one step at a time." And in that moment, I realized that maybe that was all we could do, take it one step at a time, together. Whatever the future held, whatever challenges we would face, I wasn't facing them alone. We didn't have all the answers. We didn't know where this path would lead, but I knew one thing for sure. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't running from something I felt. And that, in itself, felt like a small victory. The journey ahead was uncertain, and there was still much to figure out, but at least, for now, we were no longer pretending. We were no longer hiding from what was between us. And that was the first step toward whatever was next. As the story unfolds, it's clear that the journey of self-discovery, emotional struggle, and connection is complex and often full of contradictions. The narrator and Lily have ventured into a world where desire, guilt, and fear collide, but also where they find solace in each other's company, even if the future remains uncertain. The twists and turns of their relationship remind us that life is messy, emotions are unpredictable, and sometimes, taking a leap of faith is the only way forward. In the end, we don't have all the answers. The path they're on is still unfolding, and there are challenges ahead, but one thing is certain, they've chosen to embrace what they feel, without running away. That's the first step to truly living, to facing what's real and finding peace with it, no matter how difficult. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about the complicated, emotional journeys of characters navigating love, self-discovery, and the unexpected, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave a comment and share your thoughts. What do you think about the choices these characters are making? How do you think their story will unfold next? We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.